This is the ugly birth of chaos and carnage that would plunge the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon into years of a protracted armed conflict.
Our brother, the day for our brother, we tell we say the diaspora there, saying that only 2 more, 3 more, the thing will finish.
I had a lot of threats. Rather than missing my life, I decided to do so. But when I arrived there, I discovered that was a political game. I left.
A little boy carrying a very big gun like that, carrying a very big gun. There were about 5 of them. Yes, smoking.
Any my way chat me, I follow you. But I follow you so no be say I love you. Me I dey following up my mission. If I go for day, I don't take pistol. This small gun there, not 2 times.
On every National Day event, government soldiers who've been locked in deadly battles against separatist groups are keen to demonstrate their capabilities.
If you conceive and you implement DDR as a downstream process, downstream meaning a simple process for collecting weapons from young men and putting them in camps, it does not work.
They are now former separatist fighters under a government-established disarmament, demobilization and reintegration process. But many observers ask, how effective can the Cameroon's unique DDR experiment be in resolving the core grievances fueling the unrest? Stunning architectural masterpiece by Cameroon's moderate standards, and it gives a visitor, even in conflict zones, a feeling of normalcy. But how long can this last? It's nightfall, it's darkness, and it's extremely risky. We are in the crisis epicenter of the Northwest. It's a locality called Kombo, and here, these kind of battles are very, very recurrent. We've got to be very, very careful. Here you fight or you die.
If now gun, weapons, all thing, now only motor they don't get them, like the military them. Then get all kind of weapons them, all type of weapons they get them. Like not be first time where they use now the monkey gun them. No. For time where me I be still there for them, they get all kind of weapons them, all thing they get them. They have the chain cutters, explosive, even this money where they always bury it is explode from the ground to pick vehicles.
It is almost all of Africa which is vulnerable. With the collapse of Muammar Gaddafi, the guns could be littered through Niger, through Chad, to Cameroon, Nigeria. People could get it.
Independence for French and the English-speaking part of the Central African nation came in the early 1960s. Reunification was translated in reality through a federal model of government, but some analysts opine that failure to implement the provisions of the federal constitution sparked off feelings of marginalization in the minority English-speaking regions of the country.
We were in 2 Cameroons. We speak 2 languages. We have 2 legal systems, 2 educational systems. So these people were bound to come together. Based on well-defined principles, which was the federal constitution. And permit me say that there were about 4 articles in that constitution which protected the minority status quo of the the former Southern Cameroons called them, the current Northwest and Southwest regions. This would be, if you permit, Article 1 of the Constitution, which was very clear, that the Republic of Cameroon is going to merge with the former Southern Cameroons and become something else, a federal republic. And the republic would become East Cameroon and Southern Cameroons would become West Cameroon. So by that Article 1, the two entities actually dropped their initial names and adopted new names. The second would be Article 9 of the Constitution, which was very simple, that the president, vice president should not come from one part of the country. Yes, but we realized that from 1975, that article was not respected, where we had the president, Ahidjo Biya, as prime minister coming from one part of the country. We can talk about Article 18 of the same constitution, which stated that before any law was promulgated, there should be a majority in the two houses of assembly. West Cameroon at the time had 10 parliamentarians. East Cameroon had 40 parliamentarians. This simply means that even if all the 40 parliamentarians of East Cameroon voted a yes and just 5 voted a no, that law was not going to be passed. That Article 18 actually protected the minority situation of the Southern Cameroons, but this article was again not respected. And of course the last article is Article 47, which stated that the status quo of the country, the federal status quo of the country, should not be violated. But we realized that by 1972, we moved on to something else, to the United Republic of Cameroon. You can argue that was political evolution, but some others would argue that it was a disrespect of the Constitution. And of course, one of the important issues which occurred would be the change of the name to becoming the Republic of Cameroon.
This is the Bamenda Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Center, one of the initiatives by the Cameroon government to resolve the conflict.
When an ex-fighter decides to drop the arms, the first thing is that we have focal points in all the divisions of the Northwest region. We also have traditional rulers, the prefects, administrative authorities, religious authorities that these young men go to. And then these authorities get in touch with us. When they get in touch with us, we now tell them the procedure to follow. And the procedure is what? You go to the administrative officer of the area, you take the young man there or young woman, he or she drops the arms, they take their statements, send them to the military to transport to the DDR center.
Expert in conflict management argued that the Cameroon DDR model must be reviewed to achieve its intended purpose of peace.
Disarmament simply means separating a combatant from his weapon. That's disarmament. That's what it means, to separate the combatant from his weapon. It takes 1 or 2 minutes. Demobilization means separating a combatant from his group. And then reintegration is the process of reinserting a combatant who has been separated from his weapon, separated from his group, and then the process of reinserting him back into the community as a civilian. So all of these are downstream processes. So there also must be an emphasis on the upstream processes, that is looking at asking ourselves the question, why did these people pick up arms in the first place? And then try to see how we can develop a political process or a governance process, whatever process we need, to be able to give it to address that issue in a sustainable manner. When parties to a conflict are well defined in terms of ideology, in terms of geography, in terms of group, at times it's easy to be able to draw some kind of a peace process between them. But now, if we do agree that the manifestations of this conflict are mostly at community level, then we need a community approach to DDR, and that's what we call in UN jargon community violence reduction. Community violence reduction works best when there is no real well-established protagonist and where there's no peace process, where DDR, where classical DDR is being used to implement the resolutions of that peace process. CVR, what we call CVR or community violence reduction, works best, and that's what we used in Haiti, because in Haiti we are mostly dealing with armed gangs without any deep-rooted political ideology or standing. I don't know what is the ideological content of the combatants that we have in the northwest and in the southwest, but I have reason to believe that it's dwindling down to almost gang violence and to gang activities, so to speak. If what I said is true or it's relevant, then community violence reduction, which we call third generation DDR, will be the most appropriate way to go about it. But the two can be done. You can do classical DDR, where you are able to reach some form of understanding between the groups, and community violence reduction in communities where you have done your analysis and you believe that the community dynamics in that particular territory allows for CVR to take root and to give it more meaning.
The international community might not be agreeable with Cameroon's DDR because they insist that with the normal DDR there must be ceasefire from both sides. Both sides should come together and talk, and then there must be willingness from the both parties to drop their guns. But that is not what is happening. So in the case of Cameroon, the DDR is going on while the crisis or the war is going on. But I think that it is still important because young Cameroonians have been able to drop their guns to integrate the DDR camps. Let us imagine a situation where these guys have not dropped their guns, where there was no DDR camps, where they are being trained to do other things. We would have expected all of those in the camps now may be dead or in exile. So that is what I think should be appreciated with the DDR, that there are structures to host people who drop their guns in order to be catered for. But that is not exactly what DDR should be. DDR should not only concentrate on the ex-combatants, they should engage with the friends of the ex-combatants, the families of the ex-combatants, and the communities of these ex-combatants by producing and really recognizing that there is a crisis situation and providing acceptable solutions based on the local crisis, based on the root causes, and not artificial. The most dangerous arms are not the guns, the physical ones. The most dangerous arms are found in the minds of the people. And we must begin disarmament from their minds. You might block the borders, you don't ameliorate the plight of the people based on the root causes of what they are protesting. We are only going to be postponing a conflict, because the minds will remain in conflict situation, and it will remain the most dangerous of the weapons, which in every given opportunity it could explode. So I argue that yes, disarmament should mean not limiting, completely removing all of the weapons which are in the hands of non-state actors. I mean, completely blocking the borders so as not to get all of these guns get into the country. But that's not all. Where do these guns come from? Cameroonians do not produce the guns. It means that there are warlords somewhere around the world who are benefiting from the conflicts in Cameroon, and of course who are producing the guns and selling the guns. We are saying that when these guns are being captured, every gun, I talk as a concern with the DDR process, every gun has a code, a mark, where the gun is coming from. If we seize these guns, we should be able to engage those countries which are supplying those guns to Cameroon. We should engage them in the International Criminal Tribunal. We should hold them hostage and denounce these countries.
And my experience in Congo, they were giving $100 to any person who brought an arm. So many people brought their arms and they received a pay. That was the motivation. Because during the war, many people had dug holes in the farms and hidden their arms there. And I saw somebody who went and took 100,000 and brought one arm. After 2 months, the money was finished. He went and brought another one. He said it was his wife's own. The one he brought was his own. He received another $100. And it continued like that until the program went through.
There are so many of them here that I brought them, I myself, and we use a lot of money to have an ex-combatant. You must spend a lot because when you call them, they will dupe you, take money from you. I'm coming this day, I'm coming this day. There are some that take and they do not even come. But you need to convince them a lot and finance them before they come.
They're in a better position to convince their colleagues that this is the right thing to do. But when there is an atmosphere of fear, then very few people will want to come out.
One thing about the armed groups in the Northwest and the South is that they mostly operate at community level. You don't see an armed group in Batibo going to operate, say, in Kambe. You don't see an armed group in Bonge going to operate in Kumbu. You don't see an armed group in Mudemba, if they still are there, going to operate, say, in Mamfi. Most of them are localized. At least they might venture out of their bases once in a while, but their activities are really localized. So that can be, some of this can be addressed at community level, which then means that the leaders of those communities need to invest time and effort in a very transparent process to have a conversation within themselves, within each community. As I said, I know communities in the Northwest and the Southwest where this is already going on. And please, when you do this kind of things, my advice to those leading these processes is that when you do this kind of things, do it away from the cameras, do it away from social media. It's not always everything that you need to put on social media, because then you attract what we call a fifth column that comes in and spoils everything. I think it is the late Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres who said there are two things you should never do on camera. One, have sex, and two, negotiate peace. Never negotiate peace on camera. Go into your communities, work quietly. You don't need to put it on Facebook. You don't have to make a video of it off TikTok. When the fruits grow, they bloom, they shall be seen, they shall be visible.
If the funds, if they can arrange them, arrange their villagers, they call their people and talk to the population. Like the fund of Mendankwe, you see the population is driving back to Mendankwe. As you can see, they are driving back to Mendankwe, and where I'm living, I will say I've never had a problem concerning the amber issue again. But I face difficulties to live, but by the grace of God, I'm managing to survive.
Analysts wondered if and when the conflict in the Northwest and Southwest regions finally ends, it is critical that a re-emergence of hostilities is avoided.
In March 1997, I was a DO then in Bangui, and if the separatists then had the means they have today, like the internet, cell phones, and motorbikes, if they had it then in 1997, they were quite capable of taking over the Northwest province in one night. Most people may not remember this. In Oku, where I would serve later as DO, they took over the whole of Oku subdivision, arrested the DO, the Gendarmerie brigade, burnt down the brigade, burnt down the DO's officers, and so on. This was in 1997. Okay. The problem with us is that sometimes the issue I have with our authorities is that they have been dealing with this problem over time as if it is a law and order problem, as a merely law and order problem. But this is just, they're just dealing with it, a breakdown of law and order. No. We need to look at it more longer term. We need to look at it longer term and see and address, as I said, sustainably the grievances that push this conflict over time. So it's not just going to be enough to collect guns and then disarm, demobilize, and then maybe send these young men to work in different state institutions. If the underlying problems are still there, they will still continue over the years. That's why you see countries like Sudan, countries like Haiti, and the Eastern DRC have been thrown into a cycle of recurrent violence over and over again, because sometimes we do not believe that a domestic national agenda to address the internal conflicts is strong enough. What is needed is a strong political will to have linked to issues of governance and to leadership within the country that will address these things.
The Western Sahara people, during the colonial people, were colonized by Spain, and Morocco was colonized by France. They were granted independence and made to join and live together. And after some time, they discovered that the Moroccan government, which is the majority, started marginalizing them. And they have been fighting. They have been fighting this for over 50 years. And so while at the UN, when they identified me and they posed the problem, I was then consulted to propose a program of how they can deal with this problem. And I propose autonomy to that state, greater autonomy to the state. And this greater autonomy to this state means it is almost like federalism, where they can vote their laws, they can elect their people, they can manage their political, economic, cultural and social lives, and report to the central government. We in the Northwest, as civil society organization, gathered here in this office and made some proposals. The first input was, when there is this shake-off, because it's actually a great shake-off, where the foundation of this country is shaken, there is a legal approach to it. Our constitution gives the legal approach, which is a referendum. We propose that they should conduct a referendum, It is through the same referendum that the Northwest and the Southwest join the rest of Cameroon. So why not come back to the same table and say, let us determine this by a legal process, not by fire, not by war that we have. It will never solve the problem.
Because some of these conflicts start from the grassroots before they merge up into macro conflicts. But Jews don't have this training of having how to identify crises and address them before it become conflicts. You are very important people, but you must learn to be attentive to the needs of the population. Be with them, listen to them. You are not there to roll them. They are not, as we say in French, vos administrés. No, you are compatriots. Your destinies are linked. If they are happy, you are happy. If you are happy, they are happy. So learn as a Jew at grassroots level, and I say this, what I say for the Jews is valid for all authorities. Learn to be attentive to the needs of the population. Communicate. As long as we don't address the two core grievances of the Anglophone population, that is the Southern Cameroon's question and the Anglophone problem. These are the two key issues that have remained unresolved, unattended over the years. True, over the years there have been attempts to try to address them either through decentralization or through the special status, but from what's going on in the Northwest and the Southwest, they have not really gone deep enough. So we need to figure out how to address these key grievances of the Anglophone population that of the Southern Cameroon's question, which is about the issue of their place within the politics called Cameroon, and the Anglophone problem, which is also often defined as the marginalization of Anglophones within the polity. I really do not believe that a way out of the problem is to separate the country. I don't believe that. That's not a viable option, and that's not an option that anybody with the right mind in the international community will accept to. They have tried it for the past 7 years. It hasn't worked. Then it's not going to work now. But what I do foresee is that the conflict will come to a point where what we call a low-intensity conflict. People will be killed, churches will be opened, markets will be opened, but the conflict will still persist, and people will kind of adapt to it. And that's very dangerous when the conflict gets down to that stage, a low-intensity conflict. It can last generations with catastrophic consequences. So there is the need to go further than the grand national dialogue.
Cameroon strategically lies between the West and Central African regions, and conflict researchers insist that its stability is critical in reducing conflict in Africa.